If you've ever found yourself putting off doing something that you need or want to do to another day, you're experiencing something that all of us experience, procrastination. But why do we do that? Why do we put off doing things that need to be done? Things that are not important, things that are very important. And what's interesting about procrastination is it's not a problem that you solve by force of will. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 very common motivations that are behind different kinds of procrastination and provide you some tips on how you can address these issues so that you can feel more productive in your life. Now is always the time to start making positive changes in your life. Dr. Donna Leigh Bliss here. On this channel, I promote optimal mental health and well-being to help you become the best version of yourself. Please help me to grow this channel by clicking on the subscribe button. Procrastination. We all do it. We have a list of things in our head or maybe written on paper that we need to do, important deadlines coming up, mundane tasks that we have to do regularly, and we know we need to do them, but we find ourselves delaying it. So why do we really do that? Oftentimes people think they procrastinate because they're lazy or they don't have any motivation, but that actually isn't the case. Oftentimes when people procrastinate, they're avoiding doing something they don't really want to do or they're anxious about, and they do something else. And so they focus their attention on something more pleasurable. So you have to be motivated to be able to focus on something more pleasurable. So realizing that procrastination has nothing to do with a lack of motivation or being lazy is the first step to being able to get beyond it. So one of the main motivations for procrastinating is there's things that we need to do that we really don't want to do. These are things that aren't fun or unpleasant. Oftentimes they're repetitive tasks. You may not want to empty the trash, so you push it down a little bit more until finally the lid won't close and you empty the trash. Or you need to go to the grocery store, but you really don't like the crowds, so you put it off until tomorrow. And then the next day, and the next day, until finally you run out of milk and coffee and you realize you have to go to the grocery store. So it's very common to put off things we really don't want to do, and many of these things are low stakes. You know, our life is not going to end, nothing bad is going to happen if we delay washing the car another day because we just don't feel like doing it today. So understanding that many times mundane, repeatable tasks that we procrastinate on are mostly due to we don't have to necessarily do them by a specific time, so there's not a deadline, and so we can put them off. The problem, though, is that these small tasks that might seem unimportant can start to build up in our mind and start to generate anxiety because we feel the pressure of needing to get this mental to-do list done. The best strategy I have found for tackling a to-do list is to do one thing today. Now you might think, well, Dr. Donna, you don't understand. I have a list of 20 things I have to do. I get overwhelmed just thinking about it, so I put it off. Well, all I'm telling you is that now is the time to start taking positive action to whittling down that to-do list. So take a look at the to-do list. It actually is helpful if you put it on paper because then it becomes something that is actionable, something you can focus on, rather than just something that bounces around in your head. And just run down the list and see if one thing pops out that you'd be willing to do today. And it might be something simple as, going to the grocery store or cleaning out part of the garage, or if you're a student, starting to read a textbook that you've been putting off. The key thing to getting through this kind of procrastination isn't to fight it. It's to start doing one small step today. And I guarantee you, you'll feel like $1 million when you do that. The second motivation behind procrastinating is being unorganized and overwhelmed. This kind of relates a little bit to the first motivation I talked about. But oftentimes we have a mental list of all the things we have to do. Some of them are important, like we might have to do our taxes, or start paying some of our bills, or take the car in to get it fixed because it's not starting very well. But they can also be small things like emptying the trash, cleaning the dishes in your sink. And the problem is, in our brain, these things start piling up, and our conscious mind really has the ability to handle about 7 different chunks of information. So it's not really a very efficient way of remembering things and getting things done. And so when we have this mental to-do list, it just starts to churn through it again and again and again without doing anything, and it becomes overwhelming. So one of the most powerful tools that I know of to help with this kind of procrastination is writing down a to-do list and then prioritizing the items based on their level of importance. So the ABC model of organization is something that I've used and I've recommended to my clients, and it's been really, really helpful. So all you have to do is get a piece of paper. So you have to put this on paper. If you don't like writing on paper and you want to do this on your phone or your computer, that's okay too. But just start listing all the things that pop into your head. Big things, little things, and just get them written down. The next thing you want to do is prioritize them. So there's one of 3 categories they belong to, so you have to pick one category. An A item is the most important. It usually has a deadline. It's high stakes. To put it off indefinitely can be problematic. So filing your taxes. If you're a student, getting a paper done because it's due in 2 days. Or paying bills. Or if you've not been feeling well, going to the doctor. Or if you've had a sore tooth, going to the dentist. These items tend to have the most anxiety associated with them. C items, in contrast, are typically repetitive tasks we do all the time. Organizing our desk, washing the dishes, sorting through papers, emptying the trash, washing the car, walking the dog. C items tend to be very low stakes. They're easy to put off, and so we don't tend to have as much anxiety about them. B items are in between. B items are important. They're typically not repetitive, or they don't repeat very often. So a B item might be you need to go to the dentist every 6 months and it's time to make an appointment and you've been putting it off. So a B item has some anxiety. The stakes can be high if you don't deal with it, but it isn't as if it's a pressing item like filing your taxes by April 15th. So on your to-do list, right next to each one, whether you categorize it as an A, B, or C. Now this is usually pretty easy to do when I work with clients. Sometimes they're a little bit confused about the difference between an A and a B item, or a B and a C item, but rarely do people get confused between an A and a C item. So just do your best remembering they only belong in one category. They can't belong in more than one. So then what happens is you have to take a look at that list and do something that you've been avoiding doing, and that's tackling doing an A item. Most of the time when people do to-do lists, they focus on the C items. They're easy to do, there's not a lot of anxiety, they can check off all these items they got done, they feel really, really productive. But the big A items that have the most anxiety associated with them haven't been done, and the anxiety grows. So what I tell clients to do is to always tackle an A item first. If an A item is something really big, let's say that you want to apply to go to school, and the admissions process seems overwhelming. So writing down apply to the university might seem to be much too much to do. So break that down into smaller little chunks. But make sure you do at least one A item first. Then as a treat, you could do a C item. My experience has been when you start doing an A item, your anxiety starts to go down and you start feeling better. and you build on that momentum by just doing that a day at a time. So try the ABC method. I use it all the time. I highly recommend it. It can be a game changer for you. So the third type of motivation has much more to do with items, tasks that we feel anxious about. But the issue really isn't the anxiety. The anxiety is a signal of a deeper problem. So let's say that you're feeling very anxious about doing your taxes. And because of the feeling of anxiety, you avoid doing them. You procrastinate. That's a very common example. Or you're afraid of going to the dentist because you might have to get a tooth pulled. So you avoid it until finally the pain becomes so bad that you go and the dentist says, well, you've got a couple teeth that have to come out because you haven't been taking care of them. So one of the things that's most interesting about the motivation about anxiety is that the real issue has much more to do with our lack of confidence in our ability to cope with the issue. That is what actually generates the anxiety. We don't really feel self-assured that we can deal with these issues. We feel inadequate, we feel insecure, we feel confused, and so we avoid them. And so one of the most important aspects with this type of motivation is you have to really understand that oftentimes beliefs about not being able to cope or not being able to problem solve, of doubting your ability, are learned behaviors that you probably got from growing up in a dysfunctional family. So they're not something that you can fix with a little technique or a gimmick. It requires some work. So with this kind of procrastination, I suggest to people to talk to a therapist, especially somebody that works with family of origin issues and these kind of self-limiting core beliefs that cause you to avoid doing things that make you feel anxious, but it's really because you just doubt your ability to cope with them. And so therapy can make a big, big difference in helping you to see that you are capable and help you to feel more confident in your ability to address some of these issues. And when you do, your anxiety level goes down. Now, a related tool that can really help with this kind of procrastination is a 12-step group called Adult Children of Alcoholics. It's modeled after Alcoholics Anonymous, but it really is based on adults that grew up in alcoholic or dysfunctional families and have these self-limiting core beliefs of not being good enough, being afraid of being abandoned, doubting themselves. And those beliefs that they learned in childhood are so ingrained that they sabotage themselves by avoiding to do things that they're just not confident they can do. And that kind of procrastination can be really destructive because they tend to avoid the kinds of things we need to do that are high stakes. Paying bills on time, turning a paper in at school, filing your taxes. And so Adult Children of Alcoholics can really help you start to address these issues, help you start to realize that these self-limiting beliefs are something that you learned and that you can actually learn new beliefs and feel better about yourself over time. So I encourage you to check that out. I'll put a link to the website in the description, but I hope you do check it out. I have a lot of clients I work with, and they tell me how helpful that program has been. So while we all experience procrastination from time to time, the solution to the problem isn't so much trying to fight it or overcome it. It's to understand what is the primary motivation, what is the actual problem that gets in our way. Is it just we don't want to do it? Or we're so disorganized we don't know where to start? Or is it a big task that we just don't feel that we're capable of solving and we run away from it? So the more you start to understand what the actual problem is and address the problem, the symptom, procrastination, will get better. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please click on the subscribe button so you'll be notified when I release additional videos that help promote optimal mental health and well-being. I've also included links for other videos you might find helpful. Finally, remember, now is always the time to start making positive changes in your life. I'll see you next time.